The wind moved gently through the bamboo groves east of old Kyoto, brushing against the worn stone steps like the hem of an unseen sleeve. The leaves, yellowing at the edges, whispered among themselves as twilight fell. It was not yet cold, but the breath of autumn had touched the valley. A boy named Ren walked alone down the narrow path that ran along the edge of the forest. His sandals made barely a sound on the moss-streaked stone. He was 13 years old, dressed in a blue cotton kimono, too large for him and cinched tightly at the waist. His eyes, dark and wide, were always searching for things that weren't quite there. Ren was a quiet child, not because he was shy, not because he had nothing to say, but because, in his words, the world already speaks too much. The village where Ren lived was small and tucked between hills. It was a place of worn roofs, stone lanterns, and the sound of frogs in spring. The people were kind but distant. Ren was the boy who had come after the fire, after the loss, after the hushed dot. He remembered very little of what came before, only flashes. A red sash, the smell of roasted chestnuts, and the sound of a song sung in a woman's voice he no longer recognized. Every evening, Ren would walk the forest path alone. Some said it was dangerous, that the mountain spirits were restless, that foxes could lead travelers astray. But Ren walked it anyway, as though the forest and he had an agreement. He had walked this path for 107 evenings, and on the 108th, something changed. That evening, the sky turned lavender, and the wind carried the scent of smoke knot, the harsh bite of fire, but something soft, like cedar wood and old paper. Ren followed the smell, off the main path, deeper into the trees where he had never gone before. The light was different there, dimmer, yes, but warmer. It glowed as though filtered through ancient silk dot, and then through the bamboo. He saw it, a lantern, not one of the village lanterns with square frames and kanji cut into parchment, but a round, glowing orb hung from the branch of a bent cypress tree. It swayed gently, though the air was still. Beneath the lantern sat a small house, hidden so well among the trees it seemed to have grown there. The roof was curved like a fox's back, and the walls were of clay and wood, patched with care but aged gracefully. A small wooden veranda surrounded it, and from within came the smell of something warm, miso, or perhaps barley tea. Ren did not move at first. Then, as if drawn, he stepped toward the lantern, and it flickered once, softly. As though acknowledging him, he stepped again. This time, the paper screen door slid open before him, slow and without a sound. No one stood there. Ren hesitated. The wind pressed gently against his back. He stepped into the doorway. The house was lit by paper lanterns strung along the ceiling beams, and their light pooled in golden circles on the tatami floor. There was a low table in the center, a teapot, steaming gently, and beside it sat an old man. He wore a layered kimono, the color of smoke, and his long white hair was tied neatly behind his head. His face was hidden behind a fox mask white with red markings, the kind worn at festivals. But there was no laughter in the way he sat. He looked up. "Welcome," the man said, his voice dry but not unkind. "I was wondering when you'd find the light." Ren bowed instinctively. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to intrude." "You didn't," the man replied. "The forest brought you." Ren stood awkwardly at the threshold. The paper door slid shut behind him without touch. He sat, legs folded neatly. Across from the man. "Would you like tea?" Ren nodded. The man poured. They drank in silence. Outside, the wind stirred the lantern again. Inside, it was still. "I've seen you on the path," the old man said after some time, "always walking alone, always looking." "For what?" The man tilted his head. Ren paused. "I don't know. Something that isn't gone." The man nodded as though this was the most sensible thing in the world. He reached beside him and lifted something wrapped in cloth from it. He revealed a small lantern frame, not yet covered in paper. "This is yours now," he said. Ren blinked. "But it isn't finished." "Neither are you." The boy took it gently. "You'll learn to light it. When you do, you'll see what's meant to stay." And then the old man said no more. Ren stayed the night in the house. Though he didn't remember lying down or falling asleep, he only remembered the smell of cedar and the fox's lantern glowing. Outside, in the morning, Ren woke in his own futon. The small lantern frame still clutched in his hands. He sat up slowly, unsure if he had dreamt it all. But the frame was warm, and it smelled of smoke and rice paper. That day, he didn't go to school. He took the lantern to the shrine instead, where old man Jiro kept paper scraps and brushes for festival decorations. Ren worked in silence, covering the lantern's frame with thin, careful sheets of handmade, which it took him hours. When he was finished, he traced a single red curve on each side, a fox's tail. That night, when he lit the candle inside the lantern, for the first time, the flame didn't flicker yellow or orange. It burned blue dot, soft and steady. It did not give off heat, but it filled the room with the sound of leaves in wind. Ren didn't sleep much that night. He sat beside the glowing lantern, heart calm but full, the way it feels just before a story begins. And somewhere in the forest, a fox mask turned slightly toward the village and waited. The next morning, the lantern's flame had gone out, but the scent of cedar remained. It lingered in the room, like a whisper left behind. Ren carried the lantern with him as he walked to the old temple bridge. The village moved around him as it always did, quietly, with purpose, but never in a rush. Farmers loaded baskets of greens onto wooden carts. The old grocer swept fallen leaves from his shop front. Children with red scarves shouted on their way to school. None of them noticed the lantern dot, or if they did, they said nothing. At the foot of the bridge, Ren sat and watched the koi drift lazily in the slow, shallow water beneath. The bridge was curved, moss clinging to its lower edge like a soft green scarf. He placed the lantern beside him and ran his fingers along the smooth wood of the railing dot. Then, behind him, came a sound. Not footsteps, dash bells, soft, delicate, like the ones stitched into old festival sleeves. He turned. A girl stood there. No, older than himself. She wore a faded red kimono with leaves embroidered in gold thread. Her eyes were narrow, her hair tied with simple string, and around her neck hung a cord with a small silver bell. "Your lantern's different," she said. Ren blinked. "You can see it." She nodded. "Most don't." She sat beside him, legs crossed, as if they've done this every day of their lives. "I saw you go into the woods." "When?" "Last night." Ren didn't reply. She watched the lantern. Her fingers hovered near it, but didn't touch. "The flame was blue," she said. "Do you know what that means?" "No." She smiled. It wasn't mocking, just amused, like a teacher waiting to reveal something. "It means it remembers, even when you forget." Ren looked down at the lantern again. "You've seen it before." She nodded. "Once, a long time ago. My brother held it." "What happened to him?" She tilted her head, considering. "He lit it on the river during the ghost festival. Then, he didn't need to follow anymore." Ren didn't understand, but something about the way she said it made him feel as though he would, eventually. The girl stood. "If it glows again, follow it." "Where?" She just smiled again and walked off, her bell jingling softly behind her. That evening, the wind picked up. It rustled the trees and whispered through the old paper shutters of Ren's home. He sat on the floor with a lantern in his lap. The candle inside was unlit. He struck a match, held it to the wick. The flame caught, orange at first, then dashed blue. The light didn't flicker or dance. It simply glowed calm, like breath beneath skin. Ren held it in his hands and felt warmth not on his skin, but in his chest, as though something was stirring awake. Then the light shifted. A soft hum began to fill the room. faint at first, then clearer. It wasn't music, exactly. Not a melody, but the sound of things remembered. Wind through grass, the snap of laundry on a line. Laughter around a fire he couldn't quite place. He stood, slid the door open, and stepped outside. The village was quiet. Not asleep, but stilled, as if holding its breath. Ren walked toward the edge of the forest, lantern held before him. The blue light cast long shadows that bent the trees into slow-moving figures. Crickets fell silent as he passed. The path was the same, but it wasn. Single quotes, each stone felt familiar and strange, like revisiting a dreams deeper into the trees. The air thickened, not heavy, but dense with memory. Then, ahead, the familiar glow, the old cypress tree, the round lantern swaying from its crooked branch, and beneath it, once more, the small house. Smoke curled from the chimney. Ren approached. The door opened before he could knock inside. The old man waited. The fox masks still covered his face, but this time his hands were busy. He was folding paper-thin white sheets, stained slightly at the edges, each one folding into the shape of a leaf. Dozens lay around him. Ren stepped in quietly, placed the glowing lantern beside the hearth. The old man didn't look up. It listens to you. Ren sat. The girl at the bridge saw it, too. The lantern. He nodded. Then she remembers something, too. Ren hesitated. She said her brother followed it. The old man's hands paused. Yes, he said. Some do. Not all. What happens if I follow? That, he replied, is up to you. They spent the evening in silence. The old man folded. Ren read a book left open on the low Tabola story of river spirits and lost names. When the candle burned low, the man spoke again. Tomorrow is the Lantern Festival. Ren nodded. He'd heard the elders talk about it, how the spirits wandered that night, how lanterns were floated down the river to guide them home. Will you go? The man asked. Ren considered. Yes. The fox mask dipped slightly. Then take the blue flame with you, but do not let it touch the water. Ren blinked. Why not? The old man folded another paper leaf, because once it floats, it chooses what to forget. The next evening, the village lit up. Paper lanterns bobbed along the riverbank, glowing gold and soft red. Children ran barefoot, laughter echoing between the wooden houses. Old songs played on flutes near the bridge, slow and lilting like wind over stone. Ren stood apart from the crowd, blue flame held in his hands. Some villagers glanced his way, but none said anything. He watched them float their lanterns one by one, each one bearing names written in careful B-R-U Names of the remembered. Ren stepped to the water's edge, but he didn't kneel. He didn't release the lantern. Instead, he waited until the music faded, until the flutes quieted, until the sky turned the color of ink, and then, soft chime, he turned there. Standing beneath the stone arch of the bridge, the girl, her bell rang once. She beckoned, and he followed. They walked in silence down the old deer trail behind the temple, where the trees grew thicker and the moonlight scattered in slivers. Ren's lantern glowed steadily, blue.com. After some time, they reached a clearing. A pond shimmered at its center, ringed by fireflies and reeds. The girl stopped. "This is where they wait," she said. "Who?" She gestured, and there, just beyond the water, figures, not solid, not ghosts, not quite memory either, just forms of light, each one holding a lantern of their own. Their faces were indistinct, but their postures were familiar. Tilted heads, folded hands, quiet breath. Ren stepped closer. "They're remembering," she whispered. "Like you." He held up his lantern. The figures didn't move, but one of them, slightly smaller, with a red sash fluttering faintly at its side, lifted its hand. Ren stopped. The lantern's flame brightened, then dimmed, then dash. The figure nodded once and vanished, like fog in dawn. Ren stood for a long time. The girl said nothing. When he turned, she was already walking away. He followed. When they reached the forest's edge, she turned. "You'll come back." Ren nodded. She smiled once more, and this time he saw it. For just a moment, the fox ears, faint, shimmering like starlight. Then gone, she stepped into the dark and was no longer there. Ren walked home, lantern still glowing, blue, brighter than ever. The next morning, the wind changed. It blew in from the north, carrying with it the scent of rain not yet fallen, and the faint chill of the mountains. Ren sat on the wooden porch of his home, the blue lantern beside him, unlit. The festival had come and gone, yet something inside him remained unfinished, like a dream that had paused mid-sentence. He had not spoken of the figures at the pond. He had not spoken of the girl with the bell, nor the house beneath the cypress tree. Some things do not need explaining. Some things live best in the quiet. Ren traced a finger along the grain of the porchwood. The village stirred behind him, soft sounds of sweeping, cooking, murmured greetings. But in his chest, a hush had settled, a gentle anticipation. By late afternoon, he returned to the forest. The trees were familiar now, as though they recognized his footfall. Leaves fell like silent applause around him, and the blue lantern now lit guided his path. It no longer needed matches to burn. It simply responded to his presence. As he neared the crooked cypress tree, he paused. Something was different. The house was there, but the lantern above the door had gone out. Ren stepped closer. The sliding paper door was already open. Inside, the old man was not folding paper. He was writing. Scrolls lay open on the floor around him, each one filled with curved brushstrokes that shimmered faintly in the low light. They did not seem to be ink. They glowed with the soft pulse of memory. The fox mask turned toward Ren. "You've seen more than most," the old man said, "and yet your flame still burns." Ren stepped inside. "What are they?" he asked, glancing at the scrolls. "Names," the old man replied. "Not written to remember, written to release." He gestured to one dot. Ren knelt beside it. The characters were old-style kanji, yet he somehow understood them. Not the words themselves, but the feeling they left in the mouth of the mind grief wrapped in gratitude. Longing woven with release. Do they become lanterns? Ren asked. "No," said the old man. "They become paths." That evening, Ren sat in the old house long. After the lanterns were lit, the old man brewed tea, scented with yuzu and pine. They drank slowly. No words passed between them. Outside, the forest murmured in its sleep. Inside, the blue lantern glowed on the low table. Finally, the man spoke again. "Do you remember the voice that sang to you?" Ren looked up, startled. He opened his mouth, then closed it. "I don't know," he said. "You will." The man stood, moving with the grace of someone long practiced in being quiet. He took a small brush and dipped it in something. Unseen, he painted a single symbol on the base of Ren's lantern. The light flared softly. The hum returned, and this time, the sound was not wind or leaf or echo. It was a voice, a woman's voice, humming. A lullaby. Ren closed his eyes. He did not know the words, but his chest knew the rhythm. And something inside him shifted like a memory rolling over in its sleep. He did not cry. He simply sat and listened. The next morning, he returned to the pond. This time, he did not wait for the girl. He walked alone, lantern in hand, through the hush of trees, whose leaves now carpeted the forest floor in shades of copper and fire. At the water's edge, he paused. The pond was still. Then across the surface, a faint glow. A figure appeared, small, wrapped in what looked like a festival robe. Its face, as before, was without detail, but its posture, its stance was known to him. Ren stepped forward. The blue lantern brightened. The figure tilted its head. And then, in a moment so still, the pond forgot to ripple. It sang, not aloud, not through sound, but through memory, the same lullaby. Only now Ren remembered the words. He fell to his knees, and the figure reached out a hand, palm open, invitation. Ren held out. The lantern, the light inside, swirled, rising in a spiral. Then gently like breath through silk it floated across the water, settling into the waiting hand. And when it touched, the figure became clear. A woman, young eyes, soft smile, like home. Mother, Ren whispered, and the word, for the first time in years, felt whole. The moment did not last long. The lantern flared, once then dimmed. The figure bowed and vanished. Ren stood for a long time, the non-lit lantern in his hands, but something inside him burned brighter than ever. That evening, as dusk painted the sky in indigo and peach, Ren did not go home. He walked the path once more, past the cypress tree, past the crooked lantern, back to the house of the fox. But it was no longer there, only a ring of smooth stones where the foundation had once rested, and in the center, a folded scroll with his name written on it. He opened it. Inside, when you carry the light for others, the path never disappears. Yours is now a keeper's flame. Let it guide. At the bottom, drawn in delicate ink, a fox's tail curled into the shape of a lantern flame. That night, Ren returned to the village. He climbed the old watch hill at the edge of town, where the bell was rung each new season. There, he lit his lantern one last time and let it rise. It floated upward, slow and steady, burning soft blue as it disappeared into the sky. Others looked up, and in their eyes, something stirred, not recognition, but remembrance. The days that followed moved like silk across stone, quiet, purposeful, without rush. Ren no longer walked the forest path each evening, yet something in him carried the hush of its trees. His eyes no longer searched outward. Instead, they settled gently on the world around him, on the tilt of a sparrow's wings, the slow sway of a shop curtain in the wind, the way steam rose from a teacup before dawn. He did not speak of the fox spirit, nor of the house, nor of the woman at the pond. He didn't need to. Memory, once softened, becomes part of the breath. But the lantern, though now dim, remained with him. He placed it by his bedside, where it sometimes pulsed faintly, as though still breathing. One evening, as the harvest moon rose fat and low over the village, Ren heard a knock at his door. He opened it to find the girl, the one with the red kimono, the one with the bell dot. She stood beneath the paper lantern at his gate, its orange glow dancing across her cheek. "You kept your promise," she said. Ren stepped aside to let her in. They sat by the hearth, sharing rice crackers and barley tea. The silence between them was not awkward, it was complete. She touched the lantern. "It doesn't glow anymore." Ren nodded. "I think it gave what it needed." She studied him. "Do you know what it left behind?" Ren thought. "Then, my voice." She smiled. "And your name." They sat for a while longer, listening to the wind shift through the thatched eaves. Then she rose. "I have something for you," she said. From her sleeve, she pulled a small pouch. Inside, a folded square of pale green silk. Ren opened it slowly. Within was a seed, smooth, pale as moonlight, warm to the touch. "What is it?" he asked. "A memory," she replied. "One you haven't lived yet." He looked up, uncertain. She stepped back toward the doorway, her bell chiming softly. "When it's time," she said, "plant it where the moonlight touches the earth." And then she left. Winter crept in quietly. Frost edged the rooftops. Morning fog pressed low to the ground. The scent of wood smoke curled from every home. The lantern remained still, but the seed, Ren kept it close. He wrapped it in rice paper and placed it in a small lacquer box carved with a fox's tail. When the first snow fell, he walked beyond the village into the open field where no buildings stood. The moon that night was round and cold, casting silver light across the ground like spilled water. Ren knelt, and with bare fingers he dug a small hollow in the frost-hardened earth. He placed the seed inside, covered it, and whispered, "Grow what I've yet to remember." Then he stood and walked home. Spring arrived in size. Not all at once, but gradually, like someone waking from a long sleep. First came the drip of melted snow, then the hush of cherry petals loosening, and finally, bird song hesitant. Then bold Ren returned to the field where he had planted the seed. Something had begun to sprout, not large, just a stem, pale green. Leaves shaped like fox ears. He tended to it daily, watered it with care, spoke to it not with words, but presence, and each time, the lantern at home pulsed once, as though echoing, as though remembering. The child came on the 5th night of spring. Ren found him at the edge of the village, standing barefoot beneath the shrine gate. He wore traveler's clothes, dusty and frayed. His hands held something tightly wrapped in cloth. Ren knelt beside him. "Are you lost?" The boy nodded. Ren pointed to the bundle. What's that? The boy unwrapped it slowly inside. A lantern frame. Unfinished. Empty. Ren smiled softly. He rose and held out his hand. Come with me. That evening, they sat together in Ren's small home. The boy traced the shape of the old blue lantern with reverent fingers. Ren gave him parchment, ink, a fine brush. The boy painted. Slowly, deliberately, stroke, unsure, but brave. By nightfall, the lantern was complete. It glowed, not blue, but white, soft as breath, bright as snow, light. The boy stared in wonder. Ren placed a hand on his shoulder. You remembered something, he said. The boy whispered. I don't know what, Ren replied. You don't have to. It knows. And the light grew steadier. More came. Not all at once, not many, but enough. Travelers with half-lit memories, children who had forgotten their lullabies, elders who spoke only in dreams. Each came with a fragment. Lantern. Ren taught them how to shape the frames, how to listen before speaking, how to write gently, as if the page had feelings too. And slowly, the hill above the village began to change, not with buildings, not with walls, but with light. Dozens of lanterns hung from bamboo poles, each glowing differently, each singing its own quiet flame song into the night. Some flickered, some pulsed, some barely lit at all, but all were kept, and in the center of them all, Ren's first lantern, still blue, still steady, still remembering. He called it the Lantern Garden. People called it something else. The place where lost things are gently found. The Lantern Garden never stopped growing. By midsummer, the hill shimmered at dusk dozens, then hundreds of lights blooming into the night, each one glowing with memory, each one a voice that had once been quiet. The villagers began to notice. At first, they came in silence, children clinging to parents, elders bowing softly as if before a shrine. They simply stood and listened to the hush of wind moving through parchment, to the soft clink of wooden frames swaying against one another, to the presence of stories that had no mouths but still spoke. One woman wept quietly at the sight of a lantern glowing red and violet. Another man brought his father's empty sake cup and placed it beneath a green-lit orb. No one explained. No one needed to. Each lantern sang a different kind of remembering, and Ren walked among them with a small book in his hands, taking notes, not facts, not records, but impressions, descriptions of warmth, shapes of silence, what each glow made his heart feel. He called them listening notes. It was in early autumn, when the grasses turned gold and the wind began to smell of cinnamon bark, that the girl returned. The one with the red kimono, the one with the bell. She walked among the lanterns like a breeze dressed in thread and light. Her steps left no sound. Her hair was longer now, her expression unchanged. Ren met her in the center of the garden. She smiled at him, and it was the kind of smile that ends and begins stories in the same breath. "You've grown," she said. Ren chuckled. "I water myself well," she tilted her head. "You've kept their light. They keep themselves," he replied. "I only listen." The girl looked around, eyes resting on each lantern like a passing thought. "Do you still remember?" Ren nodded. "And more than I ever thought I would." She paused then, quietly. "Would you like to see it again?" Ren understood. He followed her down the winding path, past the sleeping trees, through the arch of bamboo that once led to the house. The cypress tree was still there, though its branches bent lower now, heavy with years, and beneath it the house had returned, but not in the way it once had. It was newer now, shaped from the memory of the first, yet touched by all that had happened since. The roof bore curls of vine. The walls held faint inked images, foxes, stars, spirals of wind. The door slid open before them inside. The old man waited. The fox mask still rested upon his face, but this time his hair was streaked with color silver, gold, copper, as though each memory Ren had tended now shimmered through him. "You've done well," the man said. Ren bowed deeply. "I remembered." Ren whispered, "Double quote, yes," the man said, rising slowly. "And you helped others remember too." He reached into his robe and withdrew a folded piece of parchment. Ren accepted it, unfolded it. Inside was a single kanji, one Ren had never written, yet immediately understood. True, to illuminate, to shine, to reflect. The fox spirit nodded. "This is your name now," he said. "Not the one you were given, the one you have grown into." Ren traced the strokes with his finger. The paper warmed beneath his touch. Then the old man gestured to the girl. She stepped forward, drawing from her sleeve a second pouch. Inside, another seed, but this one shimmered faintly like moonlight on water. "This one isn't yours," she said. Ren took it gently. "Whose is it?" The girl smiled. "Someone not yet ready to remember." Ren nodded, and in that moment, the room filled with a glow, gentle, golden, familiar. All the lanterns he had tended shimmered into the air around them like fireflies. Waking from sleep, they circled the room. Once, then vanished into the walls, and the house became still again. Ren returned to the village with a seed in his pocket. He planted it on the southern hill, where the moonlight stayed longest. He watered it with silence and watched. Years passed. The lantern garden grew. Children came to sit beneath the lights, asking to hear the songs each one sang. Ren became known as the keeper of glow. Not a title, just a truth. He aged, yes, but gently, and the light in his home never went out. One evening, after lighting the final lantern of the day, Ren sat beneath the cypress tree once more. The girl with the bell joined him, her kimono now a faded sunset hue. They watched the lights ripple in the dusk. "Do you still carry it?" she asked. Ren nodded, patting his side. "The name." He tapped his chest. She smiled. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder, and the wind carried their silence. Across the valley, somewhere, a fox laughed softly. Not mischievous, not sad, just ... full of memory and lantern light. In the final chapter of Ren's journal, tucked beneath the blue glowing lantern he had built as a boy, was a single sentence: to remember without hurting, to carry without burning.